All right, will you stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance with us? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. All right, this part of our meeting is public comments, where we take comments from the public on topics that are not on the agenda. Monique, come on up. We do have regulars every once in a while.
Dear. Good morning, members of the Carver County Board and fellow residents. My name is Monique LaCroix, and I live in Chaska. Thank you for the opportunity to speak at your meeting. I am here to reassure the community about the accuracy and integrity of our elections and to share a 10-year study that proves that non-citizen voting is virtually non-existent. True transparency requires that our conversations about elections be grounded in verifiable data. Following my comments last time, voter fraud was alluded to. If that fraud that was mentioned included the fear of non-citizen voting, rest assured that it is a vanishing amount. In the interest of keeping our focus on real data, I want to submit to the board a critical study by University of St. Thomas law professor Virgil Weibel, I'm not sure, I'm sorry, titled Needles in Haystacks, Non-Citizen Voting Violations in Minnesota. I will leave a printed copy here with Krista and send you each a link with notes about my comments today and the other information in my public comment. The findings, this exhaustive academic review analyzed data over a 10-year period in Minnesota. Out of more than 13 million ballots cast, it identified exactly 3 instances where a non-citizen voted. So that is 10 years, 13 million ballots, 3 instances. That is not a systemic breakdown. That is a statistical anomaly. It is the definition of a needle in a haystack. What this data proves and what our own local results confirm is that Minnesota's election safeguards and Carver County's professionalized administration are already remarkably secure. Prioritizing both election integrity and the safety and inclusion of voters of color and ensuring that everyone can vote safely and without intimidation is essential to a healthy democracy. Voters of color face disproportionate barriers and concerns about safety that can suppress participation. To protect both election integrity and equitable access, I respectfully recommend the board take practical steps to ensure polling sites are welcoming and safe by maintaining adequate staffing, visible nonpartisan signage, and well-trained poll workers. It is important that all elected officials as well, including county commissioners, county attorney, and sheriff, work together to ensure that state and federal election laws preventing intimidation at the polls are upheld. And there are federal laws that I will put the link to. I'm sure you're all familiar with them, but I will make them accessible in the follow-up email tomorrow. And there are also Minnesota statutes, 2 of them, which I know our election officials follow our Minnesota statutes, and I've heard that many times from people on election staff. And so these are the laws that concern intimidation and interference with the voting process and the penalties. In addition, I asked the county to track and report demographic turnout and incident data while strictly protecting voter privacy, to identify and address any barriers to participation. These steps will reinforce the facts that non-citizen voting is not a widespread problem, while actively removing the barriers and fears that prevent voters of color from exercising their rights. Our system is clean, our staff is competent, and our focus as a county should continue to provide transparency for the voters of Carver County. I want to express my appreciation to Carver County's election team. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, Nancy, you wanted to speak next? Oh. Okay, I think it was a sign-up sheet for, that's all right. Does anybody else have a comment? Yes, ma'am.
I don't have a comment, but I'd like to speak now.
Yep, that's what this time period is for you to come on up and introduce yourself. And
Okay, I'm Pam from Norwood Young America, and I was here last time with
could you step around by the microphone there? And what's your last name?
I'm Pam Undestead, and I'm from Norwood Young America. And I was here last time with a market value problem on my property. And I am zoned agriculture. And I had a problem with the assessor that was filling in for my old assessor, or previous assessor that was having a baby. And in doing so, I felt that she was not familiar with agriculture. So anyway, I think during this process, I think we've all learned, or we're going to learn, a little more about it. And as I spoke to Matt earlier, the property information search only contains the information on the property minus the right-of-way. So when you see, I have 3 parcels of 15, the middle parcel 10, and the other parcel 15. They're all contiguous. They're all butted up against each other. But anyway, when you read the property information search, it always shows less than what you own. So then I brought my survey in. It showed I had the accurate amounts of property. And then I talked to a really nice gal in land records. And she said that the correct deeded acres of your property are on your property tax statement, not the property tax information search on the computer. So the assessor was not reading the correct deeded acres. So this 9.51 is actually 10. So the property tax statement is your accurate figure of what you owe for property. And the difference is, on the like I said, is the difference between the property information search and my actual property tax statement is the right-of-way, where I own the land all the way to the middle of the road. So a little agriculture education there. And then there was a problem with my parcels being separate. And anyway, she was identifying the middle parcel of 10 acres against a statute that says if you have 10 acres or less, you have to meet these guidelines. But she did not read that correctly, and I had an attorney look it over. And the actual wording, and I showed it to Matt, the actual wording says contiguous acres less than 10. So it's contiguous acres, not that individual parcel based on the PIDs. Because I have separate PIDs on the 3 parcels, and they wanted me to merge them. And they said because it was, the PID number was individual, that it didn't meet that statute guideline. And it says right in that, I don't have a copy of it, I think I gave it to Krista. But it says contiguous parcels, less than 11 acres have to meet these guidelines. And I, and I own 40 acres. So I do meet the guidelines. Because they wanted to rezone me from agriculture on that 10 acres to residential. So that's not correct. Then I was also presented with parcels comparable to mine, but they were all, I'm in Young America. Land isn't worth as much in Young America as it is Waconia. And anyway, I was presented with 3 parcels. I was compared to parcels in Waconia. And in doing so, I looked at the interiors of the parcels on websites, and they had $150,000 to $200,000 improvements. And mine needs a lot of improvements. I need new windows. I had a leak in my shower. I had to open up the ceiling to get the leak fixed. So I have a lot of improvements needed on my property. So I was saying that the new assessment was higher than my property was worth. And then I have this one in Hamburg that's valued at $580,000. That's comparable to my house, but they failed to show that there were 2 beautiful sheds on that property for $580,000. And if you look at the inside of the shed, you'll also see that that inside of that comparable property had this carport of worth another $6,000 to $10,000. So if you subtract those brand new buildings, that $580,000 comparable to mine is $380,000. And they're trying to assess me $480,000. And I'm trying to show them that property values have gone down, not up, down. And I've
Pam?
also presented to the,
Ms. Understead? Pam? So we usually have a 5-minute limit for people speaking at this part of our agenda. So if we can wrap it up, I know we have had the Board of Equalization, that's where we saw you, and I know we had a follow-up meeting if needed. So I'm not sure if the board can somehow act on this issue or if this should go back through the assessor's office.
Mr. Chair, you closed that meeting. So that the best route is to have Ms. Understead go back to the assessor's office and discuss the concerns, which it sounds like you already did, but you may need some follow-up with our assessor staff.
Does the assessor staff have this letter?
no, they
Okay.
don't. I just got that recently from my attorney. Well, it was June 18th, but yeah, I lost it. So I had to get a copy, but yeah, and I had also presented comparable property in New Germany that was less than $400,000 for properties, which is more comparable to Young America. So I just want people to know, real quick, I'll wrap it up, is that I want to remind everybody that they work for us. We don't work for them. And that they should be doing their best job for the taxpayer. And at this point, people are getting over-assessed market values and their insurance is up. And where is all this money going? You know, people just can't afford it. And I talked to 2 librarians. They said the same thing. They're hurting too because they're getting assessed all these high market values and they can't afford it. So when we came into this community, we came in here, like he said, because we could afford to live here. Now it's getting to the point where it's unaffordable. So at what point do we say enough is enough and they need to stop or slow things down? All right, that's it.
Pam, thank you very much. I'm positive there's not a board member up here that disagrees with about any of 99% of what you just said. We do work for you, and but let's get it back down to the assessor's office. They can read this and they can put it together. We do not want you to be overassessed. So,
Okay, okay.
Okay?
All right, but I'd like the commissioner's support on that too, with the assessors, because I kind of get different vibes from them that, it's me against them. So I'd like some support too.
You bet.
Okay?
You bet. Thank you. Okay. Can I get a motion for the
Mr.
agenda?
Mr. Chair,
Oh,
there's a couple people that haven't
certainly.
signed in.
Certainly, I'm sorry. Come on up and identify yourself.
I'm sorry, I don't know the procedures. I didn't sign up today, but
That's all right.
I came and I came specifically to listen to Monique. My name is Natasha Adams. Hi, Lisa. Nice to meet you, Commissioner. I came specifically to listen to Monique Lacroix, and there were themes that really stood out to me that I want to speak on. One is the matter of race, and the other is that of intimidation. I feel like my story is unique, a unique experience, somewhat, in this district, and I think it would be enlightening to share that with you. So, as a resident of a manufactured home park, you may be aware that with Operation Metro Surge, ICE agents really put a lot of additional enforcement in manufactured housing. And so we would see for most of the winter, this past winter, probably no less than maybe 12 vehicles that were identified as ICE vehicles that obviously didn't belong to any of us, and were behaving in ways that were obviously typical of what their agency was there to do in our park. Most of them would be there in the morning when people were leaving for work, and then a few in the afternoon, and then they would return in the evening. And typically what they were doing was they were trying to, one, identify people that they were seeking to detain, and two, then kind of stalk their house, essentially, kind of sit in the street about a block away. I have always been a citizen. My husband has always been a citizen. I have no reason before this winter to really have any kind of fear of any kind of police or federal forces. I've never broken the law. I had a speeding ticket once, but other than that, I consider myself a highly law-abiding human being. So initially, because of my brown hair and brown eyes, I think I was probably one of those people that they thought, ooh, maybe that's one of the people we were looking for. The 25% of my park, I guess I would say, is of Latino derivation, and I think I appear outwardly perhaps in that category, although I am not. And so what I experienced personally initially was that I have to go downstairs to my garage and then into the garage and then pull out and go. They would follow me very closely behind me. Obviously they're not police, they can't turn on their lights or anything, but I follow me all the way out to when I would leave the park initially. That's what happened in the early part of the winter, at least half a dozen times. I started having my husband work from home so he could follow behind me, which helped. He is very, very white looking person, but he would follow behind me. So I fell all the way to the highway so I could get to Eden Prairie to my job. And then at the peak of things, right between the times when Alex Preddy was killed and Renee Good, then interim, they started, I would walk down, get into my garage, and then they would pull across to the opposite side of the street and put their nose in the end of my very short driveway so that I couldn't leave. And I felt like if I had moved my car towards them I was going to be shot, because essentially that's what Renee Good did. So I would panic and cry and close the garage door and debate whether I should call my husband and wake him up, because I didn't want him to be any altercation either. This is what it felt like to live in manufactured housing this winter in this county. So would we, in our experience, feel safe were there any kind of federal agency at a polling place? And I think I speak for most people when I say no. So That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Yes, sir.
Thanks for sharing that. It's certainly tough to follow. It makes my conversation really relevant.
Can you identify yourself, sir?
Yes, I'd love to. My name is Tom Desatel. I live in Chaska, 3681 Chevelle. I was in here 2 weeks ago with the Board of Equalization, met with you all, provided information. And I'm here today just to better understand how we went from evaluation when I left the building. That Mr. Workman, I think you so eloquently put that, and I quote, "It would be hard to value the property assessed value next door considering the similar characteristics." There were no objections at that point, and I proceeded to leave because it got quite a bit long, and I didn't understand the process. I didn't understand there needed to be a motion, a second. So I left, and then I got a letter a week or two later letting me know that it wasn't approved and there was a much higher valuation. So I'd like to understand how we got to that conclusion, and in reading the notes and getting the email, it was Mr. Fahey that actually recommended the 1.3 million valuation over the 1.1 that you had, Mr. Workman. So I guess I'd like to ask Mr. Fahey how you came to that valuation.
So, thank you. We are here to listen to comments, and we don't debate back and forth during this period. We'd certainly be able to get together with you and staff, and I would be more than happy to get together with you, maybe Commissioner Fahey too. But we don't have a back and forth
Sure.
debate at this point of the meeting. So,
Yeah, that would be great. I emailed the entire committee 18 days ago and I didn't hear anything back from anybody. And I specifically addressed the question.
well, I think what we did was directed the assessor's office to do that.
And we met with the assessor's office and they suggested that I reconnect and understand where the valuation went. So we're kind of going both, back and forth here.
Right, so, but well, it does, so I can make a motion, I can maybe get a second or not get a second, and then we would have had a vote. And it failed somehow, and like it does many times, and so then another commissioner would offer another concept. And
Sure.
then that would have to get a second and a vote. And so it's something of a back and forth. I've been at those hearings for many years, and sometimes I've gotten my way and sometimes not. And that day I didn't get my way, and but it's the process. And there was actually 6 because Miss is it Campos?
Yep.
So there's actually
Okay, I also put her in. That's good to know. Yeah, it was definitely a learning experience. I would have stayed. It was described to me that Commissioner's office, the Board of Equalization would go first, I would go second, and then it would be ruled upon. That was outlined in the email when I agreed to come in. I went first, they went second, and then it wasn't ruled on. Instead, Pam came in, and so the process that was described to me is exactly how you laid it up, but that's not how the process unfolded, and that's why I'm here today, to understand how we got there.
So
And
if I may,
Commissioner Herdeman?
I think from a point of clarity, like we're the Board of Commissioners today, and then we punch out and we're a Public Health Board, and then we come back in and we're the board, we serve different roles. But in your example and Pam's as well, I think decisions were made there that yours was more or less a continuance. Let's buy some time so you can get some information. You did that, and Tom, your assertion is that the process didn't work the way that it was explained to you. So in those scenarios, is there a window for us to reopen up the Board of Equalization? I don't know if we're going to get you that answer today, Tom, but I think that our team should look into, because of these 2 special circumstances, if it's reasonable, if that's opportunity, or if the next window is the next valuation cycle. We owe you that answer, Tom, to find out, is there something we can do with your immediate ask that was placed before us 3 weeks ago, or if there isn't. And so I don't know if we can have that answer today. But I think our staff should get back to them to say, if this was explained that way and that's not how it went, is that enough for us to reopen the equalization to hear more of what Tom has to say?
Thank you. Mr. Lynch, what do you think about that?
Well, again, we're not having
I just asked.
And that may come in the form of an email. You're a constituent. We've been in touch. I'm happy to carry the water on that one. I just think that it's a unique circumstance where you left with good faith thinking it was going to be 1-1. You left because the process of our staff was explained that this is how it would go, and it didn't, and it ended up with a different result. If it would have been you stayed and when we arrived at that conclusion, it might have been different. But you left because you thought it was 1-1, and that's how the process was explained. And so I just think it's prudent to say, are we legally able to reopen that and reconsider it? I don't know if it's to your advantage or not. It could end up being, as Commissioner Workman said, the majority rules, and that's a board of 6, so you got to get 4. And so I want our team to look into the legality of it and then get back in touch with you, whether it's me or somebody on the staff. We'll get you in the next week.
Thank you.
Yep.
I appreciate all you guys. Just looking for fairness across the board.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? And an active morning. That's good. All right. Now I will look for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion by Anderson and a second by Uterman to approve the agenda. Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Lynch moves approval of the June 9th board meeting minutes and the June 16th, 2026 Board of Equalization minutes, and I think I got a second from Commissioner Fahey.
Correct. Second.
Any discussion on those? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Community announcements.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes,
I
Commissioner.
think we all had a chance to celebrate the 4th of July. This year's a big one, regardless of your politics or leanings. 250 years as a country is huge. Sometimes I think it was layered with too much politics, but nevertheless, we're celebrating a country and 250 years of our freedom. I had a chance to be at the fireworks in Chaska on the 1st. A lot of people asked the question, why'd they do it on the 1st? And I got the answer. I happened to bump into the mayor, and she said, man, with the 250th and with fireworks on the 4th of July, there's few companies and they were charging more. And so they made the decision to have it on the 1st. I thought it was a good decision. We enjoyed it. My family enjoyed it. Had a chance to be in Chanhassen. I think I saw you from afar, Tom, that were there. I don't know if you're back from your travel or not, but I saw you there. What a great celebration. I don't know how many years they've been doing it. They were not able to do their fireworks, but they're rescheduled. But it was cool to see community in some of these long events that have been out there for a long time. My kids enjoyed a deep fat fried Oreo. What other better way to say so? And a number of bands. So that was fantastic. We went to Eden Prairie on the 3rd. They did a drone festival. So they had the fireworks through drone, which was, I'd never seen it. I pulled towards the fireworks, but I'm like, man, maybe that's eco-friendly or maybe that's cool. I don't know. That was neat. And then we ventured onto Jonathan on the 4th, which is the 3rd largest homeowners association in the United States. Watermelon eating contest. I think they've been doing it for 40 some years. And then Valley Fair. And through all that, a lot of community conversations. And so some of the topics that were on people's minds, they were talking about the 250th. They were talking about taxes. I've heard that ad nauseum, especially the middle class and lower and some of the seniors. They were talking about elections, and I don't know if you've gotten them or not, but the emails are starting to flow in that there's third parties that are sending out sample ballots and other things. Don't be confused. That's probably not coming from us. If you do have a level of confusion or questions, call us and we'll get it remedied. To the degree of education or otherwise. And so those things are happening. There was also a tough weekend, a couple of house fires, a drowning, and other things. Anytime there's fireworks or family or people in concentrated areas and water, there are risks. And so our heart goes out to those. Some they're closer to the Carver County community than others. Data centers were on people's minds. They were talking about data centers. And I got opinions on a lot of things, but the county's perspective with data centers is we talk about road access and we talk about water and soil. That's about it. And so a lot of those are city-based discussions. Road projects, I had a chance to go earlier this morning to see that the roundabout by Victoria is now open. Fantastic. Nice work, Lennon and team. I know that there was a whole week worth of weather leading up to that, but they hit their deadline on that one. The connection on the trail between the Dairy Queen all the way up into Highway 7. Some of that's partially poured, and that will continue. The road is open. And then some delays at Bavaria in front of Hartman Companies. Despite heavy, a lot of work and effort to be done there, that's going to be delayed just a little bit. It should be done by the end of the month because of weather and other things. And then discuss those road projects also with a lunch at the Arboretum with the Arboretum director and get a chance to see the inner workings of the Apple House. So there'll be one more Apple House year where it's at. And I just share this to impress on people The board worked awful hard. I think there's supposed to be 22 months of total closure on Highway 5. It's going to be about 6 months of total closure, but there are interruptions. But the progress that's being made and the work that's being done behind the scenes, those were conversations. Conversations about motorbikes, e-bikes, motorcycles, and golf carts. Some of those conversations are happening behind the scenes with education and other things. I have 2 young kids, so it's a concern for me. Conversations with Three Rivers and Met Council may be here shortly. And then dive squad and safety. I was with one of our divers that had to leave abruptly because there was an instance that they had to get to. So a lot of community conversations. Took a 35-mile bike ride on Sunday and used a number of our local trails, actually rode all the way to Minneapolis and back. And then 3 more things. Last night, I went over to Shakopee to see their new amphitheater. Anybody that knows me knows that I think it'd be great for us to consider having a smaller version here in Carver County. Motivated a lot by Red Rocks in Colorado. They generate $250 million of revenue out of Red Rocks. It started slow and it built, but if anybody likes music, they've heard of Red Rocks. This facility in Shakopee is not Red Rocks, but it's 19,000 people strong. Bob Dylan was there last night, a Minnesota favorite for some. And I was surprised at the noise mitigation. I was surprised at how well the traffic flowed. And anybody that I talked to that's been to their show or was there last night, the acoustics were fantastic. And so I share that in the vein of, sometimes we talk about the need to raise taxes, and I know our legislative delegation is here today. But sometimes we have to come up with creative ways to address it too, because I know that the middle class, seniors, and others are getting choked. And then the last thing, it was a heartfelt message from somebody that's retiring from the county. He sent out a note about all the things that he's accomplished in his time here. And I didn't even ask him how many years he's been at the county, because frankly, it didn't matter. What mattered is how much stuff he got accomplished in the time that it was here. And it was a very long list. So I took the time to connect with him to say, what do you see as the vision for the future within that space? I know libraries is a top topic in a lot of different ways. It's heartfelt for me. I've been attached to them for many years, heavy user with my kids and all that other stuff. But we have a lot of staff members doing a lot of great things. And this was just an example of somebody that didn't say how many years he worked for us. He said how many things he did when with the years that he was doing, that he was with us. And so thank you. Those are my comments.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes, thank you. Gosh, it seems like a really, really long time ago, but I attended the AMC District 10, which is all the 7 counties, meeting, and that was a very valuable meeting. We talked a lot about how we, as our 7 counties, need to work closer together and have more collaboration. I think that was the name of the game, in order to take more control over the property taxes that continue to be raised because of cost shifts from both the federal and state government. So that was a really valuable conversation. As part of that meeting, I had a chance to tour Anoka's brand new, beautiful dispatch center. And the plan, I think we're one of very few of the metro counties that isn't collaborating with another county for our dispatch. That dispatch center is all the latest and greatest technology. It's built to expand and is able to service people throughout the metro county. So as we're getting a new sheriff, I'm hoping that that's something that the sheriff's office will kind of look into. I want to thank the Chan Rotary. I was not in town, but they always host the July 3rd they help with the July 3rd event, and they run the parade. And Chan Rotary is a nonprofit, all-volunteer organization. So everything they do to run that parade is done by volunteers. It's a huge, heavy lift, and I want to thank them for their service to the community. Couple of announcements. Those Chan fireworks have been moved. They will be moved to July 23rd. That's a Thursday night, and attached to a concert. So that will be at the end of the concert. We have, that also happens to be the night of the River City Days Parade. So you can hit both communities. You can go to the parade, you can go to a concert, you can see fireworks, and it's all good. I also wanted to say that Chaska Fire and Ice
is happening this weekend. So enjoy that time as well. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Fahey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple updates on 212. We're starting to switch over on a couple of lanes. There's going to be additional flagging happening this week. And once again, just reminding everyone to slow down. There's a lot of construction starting at County Road 43. And then as we head all the way west through NYA and then also to the intersection of Highway 25. So just slow down, take an extra 30 seconds or a minute to get through that area. We greatly appreciate it. And then also just to get out and attend a town baseball game. All your local communities are out, the Hollanders, the Dutchmen, the Indians, the Cardinals, and the Hawks, just to name a few in my district. So if you have an opportunity, stop in and one of these local baseball parks and check out a town baseball game. And then also there's various farmers markets that are happening. Stop in and just buy something local and support the small business owner. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Lynch.
Don't forget the Lakers and the Red Devils. Great baseball in Carver County. And I hope everyone had a wonderful Independence Day. We celebrated 250 years. Let's hopefully we can get 251 and set a goal for 260. It's wonderful that our republic has made 250 years. Let's try to continue on. But with that, thank you, sir.
And one other comment, the Carver Black Sox. Can't forget them too.
Now, wait, what about the Cubs?
We can mention the Cubs. They're my team of choice. Well, the Black Sox, no. Victoria, Chanhassen is without a town team this year. The Redbirds have taken the summer off to go into the draft to get more and better players. They could not put a team together this year. But happy birthday. It was a great parade. I don't know how many tens of thousands of people. Also, thank you to the Rotary Club up there. That's a lot of work. Carol Lee heading that up. And not only is it a lot of work, but it's done when a lot of people want to be maybe somewhere else at a cabin or a lake. And so to all the volunteers that I said hello to along the route, thank you for being there and volunteering on a very warm weekend. The weather was really good, the party the night before. I spent a week in Hilton Head at my son's wedding. It did occur. And that's a warm place, and I came back to warm, and so you'd think I would weigh less. But it's very warm down there, and then they say, hey, throw on a suit and go stand on the beach. And but it was all good. I have my fourth daughter, so good fun. I think that's it. Seeing no other comments, can I get a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second. Oh,
I got a motion by Fahey and a second by Lynch to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion on that?
Mr. Chair, just a couple things. 2.9 talks about us taking on some land. I was curious if that's on the 201 system. I don't need that answer now, but I know the 201 system has been a conversation. And then 2.14, I know it just underscores a lot of the growth that's happening in Carver County. And I get the question probably more often than I thought I would get. But the question is, why do we grow if it's going to cost us more? I think we grow because it's going to lower the tax base and help some other people spread the debt. But it looks like some of the investments that we're making, significant multi-million dollars investments in growth, might not translate in us to lower our tax burden. And so I don't know if in the process of 2.14 and others, Dave, if we've ever looked into the overall cost of growth, and we're part of that sometimes, but overall cost of growth should actually lower our tax burden. It shouldn't raise it. And so I just ask offline if we can see if the staff can do some pencil math, if these investments are actually going to help us or if it's just going to burden us further. And that's not just on the physical cost of building the roads, but it's the water and infrastructure and education and all the other things. And so I think that's one we can take offline, but I figured this was the best forum to bring that conversation up.
Well, I think it'd be a good time for me. I was going to maybe say this under the commissioner comments, but from an Wall Street Journal article, June 23rd of this year, and the cost of home ownership. This is 2005 compared to 2019. Property taxes are up 31%. Insurance is up 72%. Home maintenance costs are up 85%. And emergency repairs are up 175%. And like I said earlier, when I think Ms. Understad was up there, we do take our charge on the property tax side very seriously here at Carver County. But this is an epidemic of all sorts, and that people are trying to buy homes, let alone stay in their homes. This is brutal costs, and I just thought I'd throw that out there. So, okay, we have a motion and a second on the consent agenda. Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Item 3.1, public hearing, consider amendment to the 2040 comprehensive plan.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, got a motion by Lynch and a second by Fahey to open the public hearing on this item. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. Mr. Moline.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. We are here today to consider an amendment to the 2040 Carver County Comprehensive Plan. I'd like to enter a couple items into the record first. The proof of publication for the public hearing. Comments noted from City of Mayor, City of Watertown, and Hollywood Township, and the draft Watertown Township chapter. So just a little background here. In 2021, Watertown Township adopted their own solar ordinance, and that ordinance required essentially to require any solar development in Watertown Township to have an owner-occupied residence on site, so that anyone on that parcel had to be living there in order to develop solar. Township did this on their own. We actually didn't find out about it till many months later. We had some discussions with them. The ordinance at first that they adopted was quite broad. It covered really permitting everything, so we want to let them know if you want to continue this, you'd be regulating that on your own and adopting a full ordinance. They did do some amendments in 22. At that point, there was some litigation between them and a solar company that progressed for several years, eventually was dropped. And last year, we had some additional conversations with the township, and they submitted a request to the county to add a policy to their, a policy about the solar ordinance to their chapter of the 2040 comprehensive plan. We had a discussion with the Planning Commission this last March. Planning Commission recommended that the proposed amendment be brought to the county board. And at that point, the board did release the amendment for adjacent community review with the proposed language. That review process concluded a few weeks ago. Again, we got comment forms from the City of Mayor, Watertown, Hollywood Township, but those forms included no actual comments. It was just a comment saying no comment. So at this point, we are holding a public hearing to request that the board authorize that we submit this amendment to the Metropolitan Council for review and approval. The language that is included in the township's chapter is as follows. I'll just read this out quickly if you don't mind. The Watertown Township zoning ordinance has been adopted to regulate solar development within the township and requires large-scale solar developments to be placed on owner-occupied land. This ordinance is in addition to the requirements contained in Carver County Land Use Policy and Ordinance, and the township assumes the responsibility to enforce the requirements of its ordinance. One of the challenging pieces of this is that really it creates a dual process for a landowner. Our county ordinance will still be in place. The township has the right to adopt their own ordinance, which is more restrictive, and that is the case here. So a landowner that wants to build and construct solar development on their own property would have to get approval from both the county through its ordinance, planning commission, county board, as well as the township board to get that approved. Again, it's legal that this is permitted. The township can do this. This policy essentially recognizes that the township has adopted this ordinance and that it is part of the process that a landowner would have to go through. With that, the next steps here, staff is recommending sending the amendment to the Met Council for review and approval. It would come back to the board for final adoption after that. And the township has 9 months to update its ordinance to align with the plan language. We did have a meeting with the township a couple months ago, suggested some additional, some recommendations to their ordinance to make it cleaner and really just focus on what they want to do, having this owner-occupied solar requirement, and remove other language that may make it confusing to applicants. With that, Mr. Chair, I can take any questions.
Commissioner Lynch?
You mentioned that there already was a lawsuit in regards to this, and this is the township's ordinance, and there's a dual purpose, so it doesn't open us up to any more liability?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Lynch, we did have conversations with the county attorney's office through this. They do believe that it is a legal process that the township can have this ordinance. The litigation that happened previously was between the solar company and the township, and that did get dropped. It didn't have any resolution. I can maybe county attorney add on any additional comments if you wish.
I mean, it's lawful, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, it's lawful, so I don't know if there's any heightened liability.
Did the solar company fare well with the drop, or did the township?
I believe the solar company dropped the lawsuit.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, any other questions or comments? This is a public hearing. Is there anybody in the room who is here to speak to this issue? Monique? You're getting a reputation, Monique. I'm giving you one. How about that? Okay.
Yeah, don't.
I like you if I pick on you.
Mr. Chair, if there are no comments, I will make the motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Commissioner Lynch has made a motion to close this public hearing, and Commissioner Anderson has seconded that motion. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes.
Mr. Chair, with that, I'll make the motion to submit the 2040 Carver County Comprehensive Plan Amendment to the Metropolitan Council for review.
Very well worded, thank you. Very fluent, Commissioner Lynch.
It wasn't, and I didn't read that.
Commissioner Lynch moves, and Commissioner Fahey has seconded that motion to submit the 2040 Carver County Comprehensive Plan Amendment to the Metropolitan Council for review. Any other discussion? Commissioner Fahey.
Paul, do you know how long that review is going to take? Is that a 2-month, 6-month process?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Fahey, don't know the exact time frame. I believe it's a 60-day. We have talked to the Met Council about this, and I think there'll be a quick turnaround.
Thank you.
Okay, hearing no other discussion, got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Item 3.2, legislative update.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tony Albright and my colleague Courtney Jasper here on behalf of Paul Haas. We represent you and the county at the legislature, and we're privileged to do so. I thought it wise to provide each one of you with a packet of the summary of the session just ended, to give you an opportunity to review the various aspects and the bills that were passed during the course of the 2026 legislative session. Rather than go into that in great detail, what we've done is prepared a summary of the priorities that Carver County prepared going into the legislative session. Uh, Ms. Jasper will cover a couple of those that are of particular note to you. But in light of that, I thought it'd be important to first just review the context in terms of where we started the session back in January. Um, to say that we have lived through interesting times is certainly an understatement. Starting all the way back a year ago and a few days with the tragic assassination of a good friend of mine and her husband, Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman, and her husband Mark, with also the attempted assassination of Senator John Hoffman and his wife, and as we've come to learn, the desire to cause even more tragedy across the legislative spectrum in that area of the state. Putting that into context, obviously, we were, and still continue to be in a divided government in terms of the tie in the House, but also a one-seat majority in the Senate. And there were a number of special elections that occurred during the course of this 2026 special election session. We had a number of people pass away. Sadly, Senator Bruce Anderson from the Buffalo area passed away. He was replaced shortly after through a special election by Michael Holstrom. And we also had the conviction of Nicole Mitchell, and then her seat was filled by a special election by XP Lee. We also had a new mayor elected, Cowley Herr, who then was replaced in her seat by Shelley Buck, who then was, it's a cavalcade of dominoes effect, and so in that, Amanda Hemmingson Yeager also took over and was elected to the Senate. Shortly after the session started, the Management and Budget Office released their February forecast, identifying a surplus of $3.7 billion for the current biennium. However, there was caution provided to that, given the fact that there is a structural imbalance with regard to spending outpacing the amount of revenue that would be coming into the state. With that, looking ahead, we are in an election year. All 201 electeds to the Senate and the House are up for re-election, as well as our constitutional officers, as well as our congressional seats, as well as one U.S. Senate seat, which will be contested on both sides as well. We have an August 11th primary to settle on the ballots that people will see in November, with the legislature reconvening for the next biennium on January 12th of 2027. So with that as a backdrop for a number of the priorities that you established that we would pursue on your behalf during that 2026 session, I would like for my colleague Courtney Jasper to address a couple in particular that were of note and have been of note in our conversations over the last several months that affect a number of the issues that have been pressed upon you by the state. So with that, Ms. Jasper.
Good morning, Commissioners. Great to see you. Just want to say, before we dive into talking about the priorities, I know you're all very busy, and just want to say thank you to those of you who took some time to come to the Capitol this year. I know it was really effective and very helpful. Also, thank you for lending us your fabulous experts. Having Lyndon at the Capitol to advocate for county transportation funding is very helpful. He is the person that a lot of other counties look to as kind of the leader on advocating for county transportation funding. So want to give him that shout out. And Heather is not afraid of anyone. And so it's great to be able to bring her in on some difficult human
Is
services.
Lyndon afraid of someone?
No, they bring him. Other people lean on him quite a bit. He's been a really good leader in the county transportation space. But Heather, as I'm going to talk about some of these human services issues, she was willing to come to the Capitol to jump into conversations with committee chairs and to really dive into some really technical issues. So just want to remind you all, you have some fantastic partners at the county, and you all are great. I know I got to sit with Commissioner Workman as he testified in support of our opt-outs at one point this session, and so just want to thank you all for your advocacy. With that, one of the issues that I know the county board was really interested in this year and that we talked a lot to our delegation about was the Minnesota African American Family Preservation and Child Welfare Disproportionality Act. I will not say that again because I could be up here for a very long time. We'll call it the Act as we move forward. And this was a really hot topic this year. The Act, as it passed, it really started as a kind of a pilot project in Hennepin and Ramsey counties. They got $5 million to start for 2 years. It didn't last the 2 years, but they got those $5 million to really test it out, kind of see what works, what didn't, to come back to the legislature and be able to say before it goes to all of the counties what worked and what didn't. And so House Republicans came in with one proposal, House Democrats came in with another proposal, and it really was a hot topic this year at the legislature. The Democrats had a proposal. It was brought forward by Representative Esther Agbaje from Minneapolis, who was the chief author of the bill in 24. And because it was such a marquee proposal for the House DFL, she said, we want to keep it primarily how it is. They had a couple very minor tweaks, but we want to bring forward some funding. You know, we're hearing from counties that there is concern about whether or not we can do this proposal and that everybody can do this. And so we know there's going to be a need for funding. And so that was kind of the DFL's proposal. It was heard in the Children and Families Committee. It was a very contentious hearing. And so it ended up failing and sitting in that committee. The House Republicans had a different proposal, and they said, we need more time. Their pathway forward was, really, we need more time. We got to make sure that we understand it. There's some reports that are going to come out. It's supposed to go statewide for all counties, January 1, 2027. We think we need more time. And Representative Don Gilman, Republican from Dassel, was kind of the Republican leading the charge, who said, you know, let's just push it to 2028. Democrats, again, marquee proposal for them. They said, we don't want to, what's going to change if we push it a year? We don't want to do that. And so at the end of the day, they came to a position that was in the final Health and Human Services bill that allocated $15 million, a minimum for counties to be able to implement this. It's a minimum of $100,000 per county, and they've got a formula based on how many individuals you have that may be in the program and what you may need to administer the program. And so it's still yet to be seen exactly what those dollars would look like for Carver, but there is some money. And then they made some small changes related to identifying who would be counted as a disproportionate child and related to family unification, to say, you know, if there's not a family member who might be proper, maybe is there someone at the school or at the church really trying to continue to tie these children to their communities. So that's what happened on the act this year. I anticipate that after it goes live for all counties, because they did not change that date, after it goes live January 1, 2027 for all 87 Minnesota counties, this will continue to be a conversation at the legislature. Hennepin and Ramsey went through $5 million very quickly. $15 million statewide is only going to last so long. So I anticipate this will be a continued conversation next year. Another interesting piece of policy that we've talked about and was a priority to track this year was related to DNMC, does not meet criteria. This is around the conversation related to the 48-hour rule and holding folks in jails who really should be placed elsewhere in a location where they can get the medical care that they need and where they can start to get back to being better. This conversation really didn't go anywhere this year. There is a priority admissions review panel that's been meeting, and they've been meeting since 2024. And the county representatives on there, there's a representative from the Minnesota County Attorneys Association, Minnesota Sheriff's Association, AMC, and MAXA. And they've really been kind of working together and working as a block to say you can't forget about counties, you can't forget about the impact on us. That review panel made up of 16 people, including representatives from the Attorney General's office and the Department of Human Services, had a report that was due February 1st, 2026. I got an email over the 4th of July weekend that they are very close. So there's a very delayed report that's going to be coming out to talk about what to do next and what some of the needs are and what this looks like in practice. So we'll be seeing that at some point. Again, it was due in February. It is now July. But that'll be coming out at some point, and there's really going to be a large conversation on this next session. There was a temporary change in the timeline to the 48-hour rule that said for until July 1st of 2027, there's going to be a hold on the timeline. And so instead of saying within 48 hours, this person needs a bed, there was this temporary timeline that was put in place to say within 48 hours of an individual being identified as needing a bed, or whenever the medical director of the state says that there's a bed available. As we've talked about, we are building out capacity, but we certainly do not have the capacity, and Carver County has individuals that are in need of that care that are sitting in our jails. And so right now there is no timeline, but that timeline is set to go back into place July 1 of next year. So I anticipate there will be many more conversations around DNMC, but that's probably going to wait until next year. With that, I'll hand it back over to Tony.
And just a final point on the proceeds that would be coming based upon the ACT information. I think it's about $213,000 that would be coming to Carver County. So we move forward. I think one of the most important pieces of legislation that I've seen, particularly in light of assistance to the counties from the state, in light of, as has been talked about at this committee, at this commissioner's hearing, as well as others, is how do we support the technology and the systems that the state requires you to maintain on behalf of the people that need those benefits. And so with that in mind, there was an initiative brought forward that's to modernize the IT system for human services technology. And it was really spearheaded by a bipartisan effort of senators and legislatures that put money aside, $50 million with an opportunity to replenish that on a formula based upon the general fund over time to really maximize an appreciation for the fact that our technology systems quite literally are not even to the end of the 20th century, much less into the 21st century. And that's problematic, as we've seen over the course of a number of sessions in terms of how do we provide those meaningful opportunities for employees to get their work done without having to write them down with the patches and the workarounds that we've heard so often about. In your packet, on pages 4 and 5, you will see kind of an alliteration for where those dollars are going to be invested over the course of several years. They have also organized this around oversight, which I think is really important, not only for the committee and the fund itself, but for legislative oversight to make sure that it is in keeping with the intent of the law. And so at your pleasure, you can review that. There's further information further back in the packet that talks about that piece of legislation specifically.
Why don't we let him finish, and you hold that, and then we'll.
Thank you. One of the other things that, as a priority for the county going forward, was for transportation funding, not only around the transit services, but also for the transit model that is currently being used in Carver County and others, and specifically around the opt-outs. There was an initiative put forward during the 26th session to divert some of that money away from the counties to the Met Council. It was defeated, although it did have a number of supporters in the Senate. As time wore on, those supporters removed their names from the bill itself, and it died a quiet death, given the fact that there was no transportation agreement for this session. Items that did not pass, and before I get to that, maybe I'll just alliterate a little bit on some of, and to thank Lyndon again for his leadership on the transportation issues. The bonding bill was pretty important to a lot of people this year, and I will say that no one was quite satisfied with exactly the amounts that were received, but the ask was over almost $4 billion, and they arrived at a funding mechanism in the general obligation bonding portion of the Capital Investment Committee of 1.9, no, excuse me, $1.2 billion. That's a lot of money, and they certainly shared that with a number of counties. And you'll see further on in the packet, there is an illustration of all of the various funding sources that receive that money, and I'll point out a few just for your own benefit. But $4.7 million for Trunk Highway 5 reconstruction in Chanhassen, as well as a couple of water treatment facilities. Laketown Township, which I have heard mentioned here just recently, received $6.4 million for their wastewater infrastructure program, as well as New Germany received $4 million for their wastewater treatment expansion project. Unfortunately, the Lake Laconia Regional Park was not identified as a recipient of any funding in the general obligation portion of the bonding bill. That being said, $392,000 did come through the ENRTF account for Lake Minnewaska Regional Park for preservation of critical habitat. And that was part of the final completion of that bill for the legacy amendment. Things that did not pass going forward from the priorities, enhancing local deputy registrars' long-term stability. There were no changes to deputy registrar funding mechanisms this past year, nor because of the structural imbalance and the funding, were there any fund changes for medical disability waivers. SNAP and also the error rate. I think, we've talked about a little bit about the SNAP funding. Some of that error rate will be, I think, rectified based upon the investment in the technology that we just talked previously about, and hopefully that will bring it down so that there will be additional funding secured. There was a $10 million investment into the Maxis system through that technology modernization program, so that should help quite a bit in terms of moving that error rate down. On the mental health side, as Courtney has talked about, the DNMC program, there were no changes to that. And so the other item that is on your priority list that we have not mentioned yet was with regard to the Metropolitan Parks Future Reimbursement Program. There were not any changes to the Metropolitan Reimbursement Program this past session. It was a policy year, and so a lot of the discussion was about words on paper and moving policy around, and also just a recognition of some of the federal initiatives that were coming through that had to be identified, not only on the tax side, but also on the health side. And so a lot of this past legislative session was really in response to how do we respond to the actions taken by Washington back in 2025. So with that, we are happy to stand for questions, and thank you again for the opportunity to be your representation at the Capitol.
Why don't we, at this point, Pam, why don't you step to the microphone if you have a quick question, and then he can answer maybe a question for you.
I just had a question about that, introducing that new IT to the counties and the government. Way back when, they were trying to create the new enhanced driver's licenses. And the state spent all that money to hire people to come in and make it a better system. And we were one of the last states to get it. And they never, they never reached out until that point to look at the other states to see what they were doing. And that's what we ended up doing. We ended up spending all that money for nothing. And then they dropped it. And they went out and found out what other states were using to create that enhanced driver's license. And that's what we're using today. So I'm just saying, I hope the state isn't trying to reinvent the wheel, that they're actually going out to other states to see what, what programs they're using. And maybe we can go out, and it's cheaper for us to buy a software package than trying to do it ourselves. So that's what I'm just asking.
So can I address that, or Paul, maybe, Paul, you or Courtney have a response?
I usually go by Tony, but that's.
I'm sorry. Tony.
Today,
Thank you for
today's
correcting
going by.
me.
Today I
Yeah,
can be
yeah,
both.
go ahead and respond to that.
No, and to your response, I think, as a former member of the House, and enduring some of those very, very large modernizations, whether it be MNLARs or other programs, I think that was really taken to heart by the legislation in terms of that is why there are two mechanisms for oversight. One within the funding itself that looks at the funding, where it's going to go towards and how best to utilize, but also there's a legislative oversight committee as well that makes sure in almost a redundant perspective to make sure that, to your point, that rather than create it from scratch in-house, that if there is a program that is being utilized successfully in another state, that we would look at that for the benefit of how would it improve and or accelerate our onboarding that program within the state of Minnesota.
MNLARs.
Yeah, and Commissioner Workman, if I might, and maybe this is an opportunity for Heather to step forward too. I thank you for your work on the technology modernization. That was a huge piece for us, and even though 89 million sounds like a lot of money, we'll probably have to invest significantly more. Unfortunately, the state of Minnesota's system is so complex, not the IT system, but our processes, our laws are significantly more complex than any other state in this country. So that is something that people have, and Heather's nodding, okay, good. And that is something that they have looked at. Why can't we just adopt, Minnesota or South Dakota's, North Dakota's, Wisconsin's? They all have systems. Our system is so much more complex. So we do have to kind of start over and start from scratch. And, I used to work, I am not an IT person by any stretch of the imagination, but I worked for an IT firm for a number of years and understand the complexity of that system and how much work it's going to take, not just in the system, but in our processes. So I think the big win for this session is really the technology modernization. For sure. And in a session that people said over and over and over and over again, where nothing is going to happen, we got something to happen. And it's because of you, AMC, Micah, Maxis, all of us working together, collaborative. I know, we were all down at the Capitol. We all spent some time with legislators, either on the phone or in person. I just have to shout out to our representatives that every time I came down Julia Coleman made time to see me. Jim Nash made time to see me. And sometimes I didn't always give him good notice. So I appreciated that. And I appreciated your partnership in what we did get done. So, and it does also prove that divided government can work if people find the common ground and get things to work together.
And I would just reiterate and actually add to that, Commissioner, in terms of, as Ms. Jasper and I were commenting yesterday as we were preparing for this morning's presentation, just that 2025 was a very difficult year, as well as 23 and 24 biennium for counties, as the state wrestled with, how to move policy forward as well as funding. I think this past session, some of the successes were borne out, quite honestly, because of your attendance and your participation at the Capitol, being present and to, put a face to the concerns as well as personalize it and bring real world results and or scenarios that people might not have realized were taking place. And so your participation is always encouraged, and it really shone through in the successes that we collaborated on with the legislature this past session.
Commissioner Uterman?
Mr. Chair, Tony and Courtney, I think it's great we started with you, and then we asked to add extra, and so we get both of you guys representing us at the Capitol, different points of view, 10 years at the legislature, and a little bit older, I'd imagine. I didn't know we were getting a third with Paul, so good that we got 3 people
Yeah, I
representing
know,
us
right?
now.
It's my
So-
second personality. I only bring it out in certain times.
So, and for me, when I started, I don't know how many years ago it was, it's like, how do you find the value of your consultants, and how do you find the value of your lobbyists? Some days you don't know, right? Some days there is an ROI. We got an extra $1 million or $2 million, or if you weren't in the halls and leveraging your influence and so on and so forth. But I think that given this contract, we do get our value. A couple pointed questions, and I'm sure if you don't know the answers, we'll get them. Can you speak to the debt capacity of the state? Because it feels an awful lot like the state's playing Santa Claus, and they're putting presents under the tree, and we're the ones that have to pay for those presents at a county level. What is our debt capacity? And then a couple other follow-up questions.
There is really a 3-part test for debt capacity and the debt service based upon the type of debt that is being issued by the state. And I can certainly get that criteria to you. It's not something top of mind that I can provide to you. But in a larger way, and I see Ms. Jasper maybe jumping to the mic for some elaboration. The debt capacity of the state is borne out based upon the revenue, and the ceiling on that is unknown, but yet in spite of that, the credit card is being used quite extensively, and the legislators recognize that in terms of, for an example, just the number of new projects that are being brought on board. That the state is becoming partly responsible for. There's always a shared responsibility for that contribution to the program or the project. But I will say that in the last couple of years, pointed conversations, as well as some bills have been introduced that really get to the point of, we will assist in the funding of these programs, of these projects, but sooner or later, they will need maintenance, they will need replacement, and so there is a recognition that continuing to build things out is prudent, but there needs to be a plan for how to replace them that doesn't require the state to be as meaningfully involved as has been in the past. So you're going to see more and more discussions about that, and I'll let Ms. Jasper add if she has anything.
I'm not going to add a significant amount to that. I think we can get you a better answer in writing than what I can share in person. But I will just say a couple of things that are worth noting when we're thinking about the increased money going in and how it doesn't always feel like there's as much coming out. And we talk a lot and we hear a lot about in 23 and 24, that was the $18 billion surplus, and we're not there anymore. There was a couple $1 billion that were put away during that time for the rainy day fund to try to at some point be there if we need it to be used. The state also changed the law in 25 related to how we bond, so that more has to be paid for on the front end to ensure that those bonds are good longer time. But we can get you something better in writing on that.
Yeah, I didn't know if we're
suspect.
like this close or we're this close or we're up over the water. And I know I've seen a lot of stuff about the tax climate in the state of Minnesota. Not too many people are, not too many businesses are running to Minnesota to expand their business. And that's concerning because that's a tax revenue. And I understand that there's needs and increasing needs in some of our marginalized populations. It needs to be paid somehow. And so we've had a lot of these conversations of those balance. I do think that there's a good amount of momentum from the counties at the county level. And I know AMC is a political juggernaut, but I think some of the subsets that are pooling together to say, hey, wait a minute, outside of Minneapolis and St. Paul, and they're the population center, now, there's 87 counties and most of those are rural. And so we've seen the counties band together to say, hey, wait a minute, we need to have our voice heard too. And I think the county voice has been heard at the Capitol more in the last 2 years than for a long time. I do know some of those voices rural and meeting to suburb, maybe not city-based, but I know I see it and feel it and talk to the families, kids in school. You get to talk to people and they're in their prime working years. And I know we have some folks with us today. Everybody's talking about affordability and housing is at the top of the list. And I know that there's been housing bills and Allison's walked me through the complexities of how it takes to fund a project. We're going to hear about one of them today. Was anything accomplished at the Capitol this year when it comes to the missing middle, affordability, and housing? Because we had everybody in a meeting clipping a ribbon not too long ago, all the decision makers, and everybody's saying the same thing. The federal level, state level, local level, it's broken. But it doesn't seem like anybody wants to fix it. Was there anything that was addressing missing middle or housing at the Capitol this year?
That's probably one of the largest issues that we worked on behalf of other entities this past session, Commissioner. And it really comes down to definitions. What is affordable? What is accessible? The missing middle, and other terms in terms of a national initiative to build more homes. Well, what type of homes? Is it single-family residences? Is it duplexes? Is it condos? We talked about HOAs with Jonathan, the third largest, I think you mentioned, or fourth largest. HOA measures of reform in terms of just from the litigation perspective, in terms of after a certain number of years. A lot of time was spent in coalition, whether it be Metro Cities or the Council of Greater Minnesota Cities, getting together with an entity that we represent to really identify the fact that at the core, what was really pushed forward was a preemption of local control. And there are debates about whether or not local control is too strenuous or too restrictive in relationship to putting up homes. But at the end of the day, nothing was passed because there was not agreement in terms of, to my earlier point, the definitions in terms of what does affordable mean to certain people, what does accessible mean? And on top of that, layer it in terms of what is the responsibility of local governance versus the Met Council reform? We talked about your comprehensive plan. That has been the guidepost for a number of years for all municipalities, particularly in the MUSA, in terms of how planned growth takes place. In the opinion of some, the initiatives that were put forward at the legislature were in an attempt to circumvent that Metropolitan Council's comprehensive plans and or the amount of effort that is already just underway in terms of putting together the 2050 comp plans in terms of how that planned growth is to occur. If you layer on top of that, one of the missing or in the invisible, quite literally, issues that face a lot of municipalities is the infrastructure that goes towards support of additional housing, whether that be your stormwater, your drinking water, your septic, your drainage, the whole thing, and who is responsible for those investments, who pays for it. And that's a matter of a debate, and it continues to be so. And so it's an ongoing dialogue that we have. There are points that both sides can agree and do agree on. It's just a matter to the degree to which they agree on them, to put something in a bill form and put it forward. But local control and giving up those, I wouldn't say opportunities to determine your own municipality's growth pattern. Once you give them up, it's very difficult to retrieve them. And so that's why they were hard fought, and they will remain to be defended unless there is agreement in terms of what is planned to be provided in lieu of those.
Two last things really quick. Funding and fraud. Funding, did we receive any additional dollars to support our DMVs? And did the Cologne water project, did that get funded? And then second of all, I don't think it's been mentioned, which is odd in political circles to not hear the word fraud. The containment, or it's hard to piece through what's going on in the media and otherwise. Did the topic of fraud, is there any measurable from to that provides savings or relief when it comes to budget?
Fraud. Very fun. Can't believe we made it this far. There was this that was like the hot topic of the session. It was fraud, firearms, and the federal government. The conversation around fraud. There was quite a bit that was passed. Tony talked about the Human Services Modernization Bill. While it did have money for SSIS, there were things for Maxis to try to clean up SNAP, make sure those dollars are going in the right place. There was a new office that's been created, the Office of the Inspector General. That role is going to be focused on trying to combat fraud. One of the things that Commissioner Anderson brought up earlier is our very complex data systems in Minnesota. And it may not shock you all, but it was a little shocking to me when I first heard it. Each of our different state agencies have completely different data sets that they are looking at. And so it is very difficult for folks to be able to see, like, oh, if this individual shouldn't be, licensed with the state, or if they've got a fraudulent past, how do we prevent them from getting into services in other spaces? And so that's some of the stuff that OIG is going to be doing. There's a bunch of new program licensing. Going through the Human Services Bill, there's new licensing for the early intensive disability and behavioral health space. There's new licensing for different child care centers. We heard a lot about child care centers and fraud over the past year. And so there are going to be some of those things. I think as far as your question around how that's going to impact dollars and cents, the goal is as we put in more, as the state puts in more guardrails and more licenses in these different spaces, that way some of these fraudulent providers are no longer going to be receiving state funding, and those dollars can really be focused on individuals. I think it'll take some time to see what that impact is on the state budget over time. But there are 13 different provider spaces where they have had a significant amount of folks get cut because the state can't process quick enough who is legitimate and who is not. So there are a lot of things going on right now. I think there's a lot of folks that are scrambling to try to figure out how we deal with the fraud because it is so rampant, as you mentioned. But I think some of that and the things that are being put in place, they're going to take time longer down the way. I don't know if you have an answer on the Cologne stuff.
I would just add to what Courtney said about we just had a hearing in the Senate on revalidation measures to try and figure out where we stand with trying to separate out those that do good work for those that really desperately need those services and those that have done so for otherwise nefarious reasons and are not providing the services. This is all on top of a requirement by the federal government, a deferment of almost $2 billion that would be coming into the state were it not for making sure that the source of those funding mechanisms are legitimate. And so that's why I think you're going to find additional efforts, maybe a segue to your question around what does it cost to provide those services? Where does that money come from? Does it hit the bottom line for a county like Carver? More to come in terms of identifying how that resolves itself. I don't know that there's a definitive answer at this point. The Cologne Water Project was not funded, but we can certainly find out where it is in the queue. But unfortunately, it did not meet the general obligation list.
And then any change in how DMVs are funded? Okay, thanks.
Okay, anybody else?
If I could, I believe, wasn't Paul your fake ID in college?
Okay, you guys.
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
Well, the sheriff's in the room, but I think the statute of limitations has expired for that.
Appreciate that.
My concern is, Courtney, and I thank you for all you guys do down there, and Tony, you guys do a wonderful job representing Carver County. I can't thank you enough. You mentioned the act, and we're going to receive $213,000 funding for the act, but you mentioned Hennepin and Ramsey each ran through their allotment pretty quickly. What if the cost is $250,000? What if it's $1 million? Where does that additional funding come for that?
I fear, Commissioner, that the answer is one of two things. It is either going to be Carver County taxpayers and you all finding funding for it, or it is us returning to the legislature next year, among other counties, to say we need more money to do this program and to do it effectively.
Thanks for giving me the answer I didn't want.
Mr. Chair, I would, if I could, also note Hennepin and Ramsey received funding for their initial pilot. And I'm looking at the list here. Yeah, we did get 213 one time. Hennepin got 2.2 million and Ramsey received 1 million, a little over that. So there seems to be some inequity going on there, but it's really concerning. That'll be a big part of our budget story here, the budget problem. Will be the act and other cost shifts, so stay tuned.
I know Commissioner Fahey was next.
But you had a comment, Courtney?
Oh, thank you, Commissioner. I was just going to add that as County Administrator Hemsey mentioned, they went through their funding really quickly in their first 2 years, Hennepin and Ramsey, and they're getting less than that. They also were on a pilot basis, and so they were not offering all of the individuals who qualified for the program to receive the benefits of the program. So they similarly will likely be in a difficult financial space after the year. So I anticipate many counties coming back for more money on that. Thank you.
Tony had made the earlier comment that the bonding portion of it with over $4 billion in ask, and they awarded $1.9 billion. So just imagine going forward, there's that delta, $2.1 billion that weren't met. Next year, it's going to be $5 billion. The year after that, XXX. So as we try to put a lid on it, unless the state legislation changes, we're going to continue with these requests. For example, the city of Cologne that Commissioner Uterman mentioned, that the city of New Germany, $4 million is not enough. And so now they're stuck because they can't find that other $4 million that they need to make it successful. So it's just challenging. And then a question about Maxis. You said that $10 million, is that enough, or is it just ripping the Band-Aid off that it's going to take 5 to 10 years to fix it?
And maybe, Commissioner, to address a couple of the points that you've made. One of the mechanisms in recognizing that some of these smaller municipalities just really have a difficult time based upon their tax base in providing the services that are mandated by the various agencies in terms of upgrades to their wastewater treatment centers or what have you. That is recognized at the state level in terms of how do we provide a pool for grant provision, that type of thing, PFA, some of these other programs that recognize the need for smaller communities to dip into that because at a larger amount than what otherwise might be provided in a geo bonding bill. I'm sorry, but your next question, I just. Oh, it's a good start. This is an investment in a multi-year program that I think as new funding comes in to the modernization technology account, they will address that going forward. But yeah, it's a very good initial investment into the upgrades of Maxis, and I'm sure Heather is breathing a little easier knowing that there's at least that amount of money coming in. But that definitely, as was remarked in committee, and as most people would recognize, that definitely will alleviate and hope to rectify some of the error rate that goes on, which also causes trouble for counties in terms of bringing that error rate down, notwithstanding that it's their own fault, but because of the technology that they have to utilize in order to provide those benefits.
But thank you, it's for what you and Courtney have done. It's just very informative and thorough. And I read through this list, it's health and human services, transportation, elections, mental health, parks, family care, child care, veterans, e-bikes, gun violence prevention, fraud. And then I come to the egg donation bill. That's in your packet here, that now it's okay to donate eggs. You can grade AA eggs. You can hold them for 31 more days past the expiration date. But grade egg days you can hold for 46 days. So how they come up with that number and to read this and how much time was spent to see if the egg lasts longer than the other egg, it's amazing.
And my initial representation of that was really in recognition of supplying the food shelves with protein and recognizing that eggs are one of the most available sources for those that are seeking help, putting food on the table, providing that protein to their children. I'm not aware, and maybe Courtney has some explanation in terms of the differentiation between AA and A eggs. They both, have a freshness date on them when they are produced. So that being said, but it was in response to just making sure that past expiration date, let's not throw them away. Let's provide them with an opportunity to benefit some people that are in need.
I guess the only thing that I would add to that, and I don't pretend to be an expert in any of this, it's been a fun bill to hear about and talk about. A lot of counties and different waste groups were really interested in this because they were seeing an increase in eggs in the waste stream. And so there was some research done. It's been passed in other states first. And so it was one of those things where we looked to other states and say, what are they doing that we could do? And so it just helped get those eggs out of the waste stream and to help folks who are in time of need. And so they recognize that these eggs can last longer than what may be stamped on them. And so to try to get those into food shelves, that was really the goal.
Thank you.
Mr. Anderson.
Tony. I'm going to get that. I'm so sorry. And Courtney, thank you again for this. I think, thank you, Commissioner Fahey, for reading out that list, because it really talks to how much the breadth of topics and services we provide as a county. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. My biggest aha as a commissioner is how important it is to stay involved in the legislative process and in what we're doing. The act is going to be the gift that keeps on giving. We'll probably have to continue to lobby that for the next 10 years, simply because nobody was honest about the cost that was going to shift onto counties. And that's going to raise our people's tax bills significantly. Now, I give a lot of credit to Director Goodwin on making that as efficient as possible. I'm not optimistic that that's going to solve all of our needs, and we'll probably have to raise taxes more to suffice that, but or to accommodate the active efforts that they have said. But that's the big news here. And thank you. And I think Commissioner Uterman talked about your ROI. Not gonna lie, I'm like, why do we need lobbyists? And now I'm like, oh my gosh, we so need lobbyists. So thank you for the work you do. And as a member of the AMC board, we are working hard to try and continue to come together as all 87 counties. And we also need to explain to our taxpayers why property taxes are going up. It's because of the shifts from the state government and the federal government in some cases. But at this point, it's really all about the state government. So I just wanted to, I'll get off my soapbox now, but thank you again for your work. And I know we have a legislative committee on this board of 2 people, but it's really all of our jobs is to really be more and more involved at legislative priorities at both the state and federal level. So thanks for that.
Mr. Chair, if I might, just comment to Commissioner Anderson's comments. Thank you very much. But this is a collaboration between the commissioners and our representation based upon the relationships, not only that we have with you, but that we have with the legislators themselves. It is a partnership, and we deem it such, and so we thank you for your efforts to be accessible and be willing to participate in the process.
Yes, thank you very much, both of you. I would, and Commissioner Lynch and I have been around long enough to remember when we really didn't. We might have spotty had some lobbyists. They're one of those things you wish you didn't need to have one. Truth be told, I wish we didn't need to have the sheriff's department or a jail
It's a good thing he walked.
or a county attorney. And all the other things that we need to pay for, unfortunately. And so it was a little bit of a sell for previous boards. What do you mean? We got to lobby? We're a government. We got to lobby the government? Well, yeah, we do. And our Carver County 2026 legislative concerns, the top of it reads, recent state and federal legislative decisions have created unprecedented costs to Minnesota county governments. As a result, Carver County is proposing a 2% property tax levy surcharge each year for the next 3 budget cycles to cover an estimated $6 million in cost shifts. The legislature comes up with any of a million ideas, from eggs to everything, and they primarily fund those items through sales and property tax, sales and income taxes. And we are left with property tax bills, but they have the act is the major one that they came up as a great idea. The fiscal note from MMB, the budget office down there, said no cost, right? There's no cost for this new program. No cost to the state. And they shoved it down to us. And the legislature has a bad habit of doing that. And so we get the grief on the property tax bill for a lot of things that go on. I think this discussion on this day is as valuable to the property taxpayer as our budget hearings. To be aware that not everything is in our control. We have to do as the state says. And I see Heather back there, and we had a meeting recently. Has the state let us know about the disbursement? Are we still behind, or are we now caught up on that?
We have received disbursement information on that, but Administrator Hensey has spoken about that today.
Okay, so we do have the numbers?
We're still interpreting the numbers, Mr. Chair, and we'll present that as we move through the hearings and beyond, but not particularly the good news at first blush. No surprise there.
They're maybe a month. They were a month late.
Yeah.
As we try to develop our budget, which is an all-year process here at Carver County. But a couple of issues. So the opt-outs, we had to save our beautiful southwest opt-out from being consumed into the Met Council under the guise of, well, it'll be more efficient. So let's have the people who have a light rail line that is 2.5 billion over estimate and has been sitting there for 11 years, take over our transit. I'll let you digest that. The housing issue, the Met Council by its very nature restricts how much land can be developed. That's the agency that controls how much sewer pipe everybody gets. So a limited amount of sewer pipe and land equals very expensive land. I know we've talked about that over and over. That's about all I want to touch on. Very, very frustrating watching the legislature who has a lot of ideas that they just don't have the money to fund. And so they're picking on us, and we will continue to defend our part of that bill, the property taxes, and not be ashamed to say it. So, but thank you guys for all your hard work down there. It was an extraordinarily weird year. It just wouldn't end, and then it did kind of abruptly. But we do thank you, and we're going to continue to have lobbyists, folks, unless somebody can give me a good idea for not to defend the property taxes, property tax payers of Carver County. So, Paul, thank you. He was in a fraternity in
Really
college.
tried to correct that.
His fraternity in college was Tri Kappa Kega. So something weird. Yes, Pam.
They have talked about these people that are convicted of fraud and that they put them on probation and they're supposed to be making payments back, paying that money back. And then they extend their probation and the probation expires and they don't have to pay a dime back. So isn't that a lot of money we're giving away and we're not, I mean, why are they not making those people pay that money back entirely or for the rest of their life?
I'm not an attorney, and I just only played one part-time on TV, but my colleague, do you have any comments to that?
I guess the only thing that I would say to the board is, and to the question about fraud is, we've got a lot of ongoing cases right now, a lot of ongoing trials related to feeding our future and some of these other cases. I do think the state is trying to prosecute all of these individuals. It's a lot of people, and so it takes quite a bit of time to go through the process. I do think that they are trying to recoup the money that they can, but I think again it's an ongoing process, and can't speak to that exact example related to probation.
Yeah, we didn't request you guys to keep an eye on that for us down there. That's prosecutors and other people involved in, and that we aren't involved in that.
And all the lobbyists don't
No,
for that stuff?
no. No, I think the whole state is pushing for less fraud.
Yep.
Anyway, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Have a good summer.
You as well.
All right, number 3.3, CDA Trails Edge Senior Housing. Hello there.
Good morning, Chair Workman and Commissioners. Allison Strike, Executive Director for Carver County CDA, and I am here to talk about Trails Edge Senior. So the CDA was awarded $3 million by the county for new development, and this additional funding helped provide leverage so the projects would score higher with Minnesota housing. So we're going to talk about Carver Place, Carver Oaks, and Trails Edge Senior. Carver Place closed on August 20th of 2025. It's in the city of Carver. We broke ground the following week, and it opened September 1st of 2025. It consists of 60 units, 15 one-bedrooms, 32 bedrooms, and 15 three-bedrooms. All households will be at or below 60% of area median income, which is currently 55,260 for a household of one and 91,560 for a household of six. With further income restricting for households at 50% or below of area median income. And then we have 7 units of Section 811 rent assistance. And that is where the head, co-head, or spouse is between the ages of 18 and 61, and someone in the house has a disability. That household pays 30% of their income, and the rest is subsidized. And then we also have 7 units of high priority homeless, and those units are subsidized through the housing support program. Carver Oaks broke ground in February of 2025 and opened in February of 2026. It is a 43-unit senior property serving households at or below 50% of area median income, which is currently $46,050 for a household of one and $65,750 for a household of four. This project has 32 one-bedrooms and 11 two-bedrooms. There are 7 units of VASH funding, which is project-based vouchers for homeless veterans or homeless or at risk. Households pay 30% of their income, and the rest is subsidized. Oops. All right. Trails Edge Senior. So Trails Edge Cedar was awarded funding by Minnesota Housing in December of 2025. It will consist of the same number of units and breakdown of units as Carver Oaks. So we basically took Carver Oaks, the building, and just put it down on our parcel in Waconia. So same income limits. This project will not have any VASH units, but it will have 9 units of high priority homeless funded through housing supports. And then we have an additional 3 units that will be restricted to households at 30% of area median income. And that means the rents will be also allow those households to afford the rent. So this is the current funding structure for Trails Edge Senior, obviously subject to change up till final approval by Minnesota Housing or until our closing. Our general contractor will put this out for bid in midsummer. We will be in front of the Waconia Planning Commission this Thursday night and the City Council on July 20th. And we're currently carrying about $183,000 worth of costs on this project, which will increase up till closing. So unit amenities include a washing machine and dryer in each unit. Each unit will have a magic pack, which means every unit basically has central air within the unit. A full kitchen package, so stove, fridge, dishwasher, and microwave. Wired for high-speed internet, and then every unit has 1 parking space that's included with the rent. Like all of our other properties, the property is 100% smoke-free, except for in designated smoking areas. Controlled access and cameras, and then a community room, a fitness room, a craft room, and a library. So our timeline for this, right now, actually, we're hoping for late 2026. County funding will need to come in at the time of closing, and that is $1 million. A 12-month construction schedule and a 6-month lease-up schedule. And I'm going to shift gears a little bit now to ALAHA update. So 2024 ALAHA, just over $1.141 million came to the CDA. That's 70% of the county's allocation of ALAHA. The first round of first-time homebuyer down payment assistance launched in 2025 and provided funding for 19 first-time homebuyer households to support their dream of home ownership in Carver County. The average assistance was just under $50,000, so 18 households received $50,000, which was the maximum, and 1 household received $48,000. The average household size was 2.4 persons. Average income was just over $78,000. Average purchase price was just over $321,000, and the average mortgage was just over $263,000. 47% of home buyers were current Carver County residents at the time of home purchase, and homes were purchased in 9 out of our 11 cities. The rental assistance program launched in February and closed in April of 2026. We expended just over $163,000 in emergency rental assistance to assist households experiencing housing instability in Carver County. This program was administered in partnership with Bountiful Basket, We serve 64 households with an average household size of 3, average income of just over $31,000, and an average assistance amount of just over $2,000, well, almost $2,500. And then the remaining 2024 amount, which is just over $28,000, will be part of the fund that were approved towards the rehab work for 100 State Street and 110 West 2nd Street. 2025 was just under $3 million, our 70%. We launched our second round of first-time homebuyer down payment assistance and our first round of first-gen down payment assistance just a few weeks ago. We currently have 4 reservations for home buyers and 20 pre-apps are being processed. The multifamily CDA set aside again was for the purchase of 100 State Street in New Germany and 110 West 2nd Street and the rehab. The multifamily non-CDA is set aside for other developers to apply for towards funding for new construction, and I'll talk more about that on the next slide. Our senior rehab program will launch in fall of 2026, and that will be in partnership with Rebuilding Together Minnesota. The program is designed to help low-income Carver County homeowners age 62 and older or disabled repair vital home systems. And the intent of the program is to help low-income seniors, so 50% of area median income or less currently, $46,350 for a household of 1, and just over $66,000 for a household of 4, to repair or replace critical systems in their home and allow them to more successfully age in place. So that would also include accessibility. The maximum loan amount per household is $30,000, is a no-interest deferred loan that will be forgiven over 10 years. If the homeowner remains in their home for 10 years. Eligible improvement examples include accessibility modifications, HVAC, electrical, and plumbing. Sorry, and these funds must be spent by 2029. The 2024 funds must be expended by the end of 2028. And then 2026. So this amount just came out last week. The CDA's 70% is just over 3.1 million, so a slight increase from 2025. So we are asking for 1.3 million of this to go towards Trails Edge Senior. This will replace $2 million that we currently have in federal earmarks. Those federal earmarks actually reduce the amount of tax credits that we're eligible for. So the $2 million is not actually worth $2 million, it's worth about 1.3. And the earmarks also add additional costs to our construction costs and added layers of compliance that will slow down the closing process and opening of the building. You don't have it on here because I didn't have this number when I set the PowerPoint to Nick, but now that we have the full amount, the 10% set aside for other developers, for non-CDA developers would be about $310,000 of 2026. So that total between 2025 and 26 will be just over $610,000 of funding. So we intend to release an RFP in late 2026 for other developers to apply for that funding. And then because the numbers just came out last week, we haven't done, looked at the rest of the allocation for 2026. So we're requesting funds be released for this project. And so the motion is to release the $1 million to the CDA from the CDA Housing Project account for the Trails Edge Senior Project. Any questions?
Any questions? Commissioner Fahey.
Thanks, Allison. Just being involved in a lot of previous CDA projects, serving on the CDA board, I just get extremely excited to hear about these new projects. And can you just talk a little bit more about the time and effort that you put in to put together these funding packages and the various sources?
Commissioner Fahey, yes. So Trails Edge South, which opened in 2022, Carver Place, Carver Oaks, and Trails Edge Senior. All 4 of those applications were submitted to Minnesota Housing in 2020. 1 got funded. Then I kept submitting all of them until they each additionally got funded, with the final one being funded in 2025. So every year to submit those applications, you start in about January, applications are due in July. So it's like a 6-month sprint to like get all the required information uploaded to Minnesota Housing, trying to do whatever you can to get points to like basically back into getting the most points that you can. So it's a lot of time and effort on the front end, but probably not as bad as it is once you get funded. So then once you get funded, I mean, we've been working on Trails Edge Senior since December. You have to find a syndicator, you have to, all the attorneys, like working with our general contractor, working with our architect. To get to closing, I always kind of joke, if you remembered how hard it was to get to closing, you wouldn't do another one again, but you do, because there's so much compliance on the front end, like even reading the limited partnership agreement for the LP. It's like 300 pages of 50% of it goes right over my head, and that's why I have an attorney, and the other 50% is negotiating back and forth. And then, I mean, it's not even all on the front end too. We just had our housing assistance manager do a presentation to our board. I don't think it was last month, but the month before, about the ongoing compliance then that these properties take to manage once they're open, up and running.
Thank you. Keep doing what you're doing.
I already have the next project kind of in line.
And I was in New Germany at a car show, and we talked about the projects there, and the city of New Germany are very thankful for the project across from the T Road, and I think that's 100 State Street, if I got the addresses right. So that for a small community like New Germany to see some benefit from the CDA is very important.
We are very excited to have our first project there, and we just bid out. We will be replacing the siding, the windows, and the exterior doors. So I joked at the city council meeting, I don't know what you're going to do when you don't have the big blue building at the end of the road for people to identify as a marker, but we're excited.
Commissioner Lynch.
Allison, is it needed? What's the vacancy rates in all of our buildings?
We average about between 94 and 95%. So, and you can attribute, a good amount of that to just turnover. So people give notice, then we have to turn the units over and fill them again. So
Do you
there's
have a waiting list?
So we use Waitlist Central, which is done through Housing Link. So most of our senior sites, they have an interest list. Definitely for our project-based vouchers, our subsidized Wayberry, I think the waiting list is anywhere from 1.5 to 2 years. So it just depends on the property and the location.
Commissioner Uterman.
It's been a really busy half decade while you take over and the change of that and a whole lot of social things going on in our community. So great job on top of addressing one of the other larger concerns, which is the expansion of your offices. Can you tell me when that's expected to be done?
Tentatively, I think they will be done with most of it in the next couple of weeks. However, we decided to add a little bit to the remodel, and our office furniture is a little bit behind schedule. So my hope is that we will have the August board meeting in our new space.
Got it.
Yeah, but they've got a lot of it done. We're very excited. It's going to look amazing.
Can you talk about maybe this is for Heather too, can you talk about the LAHA money that we know of and what happens to that program post? I think you got money out to 26. Is it another 3.5 million for 27, and then does it end, or what does that look like?
There is no end as of right now. The legislature would have to stop the sales and use tax to end that program. I don't think that was even a topic of discussion this year, to my knowledge. So, yes, at some point, I fear the money may catch up with both us and HHS. But I think right now, with where we are and what we've expended and the dates, I feel pretty comfortable with where we are.
Okay, because then 27 would stretch out. Is it 5 years you have to have them? Once
You have to expend by December 31st of the fourth year. So 2024 is the end of 2028, 25, the end of 29.
Yeah, so if you got fresh money in 27, you're looking at projects out to 31.
Correct.
And so this is less for you, and I know you're experiencing, Tom, Commissioner Workman had shared about how expensive things have gotten. You guys are not immune to that. Building costs, staffing costs,
Insurance.
operating costs, insurance costs, all that stuff. And so that's not lost on me. I mentioned it before, and I'd like to be even more bullish today, is we have issues at the First Street Center. We don't have a plan change up for that. And I know we got to get the 600 building done and whatnot. But I think the use of LAHA money, the use of property that we control, a double parcel in Waconia, lends itself to be a fruitful conversation to see if that could be a future project with you guys. Meaning, The county could occupy a new space on a base floor to replace what we currently have. You guys can stack housing on top of it. We don't have any interruption where the people would go at First Street Center while it's being built because the parcel is large enough, and then it could open up opportunities in the future. And so those LAHA dollars, I think, at some time will go away, and I hope it's not for a while. But if we can plan it, you guys are excellent in the points game, although it's painful to do so. But can we use that to keep our taxes down, replace buildings that we know is happening in partnership to deliver incremental housing? And I think that's a smart partnership to look closely at for what next building projects might be. And I say that because I know the stress of the last 3 to 5 years. I mean, I've been with you at ribbon cuttings when closings have happened, and you got all the pieces and all your partners, and everybody seems to be smiling, but the hour or 2 or 7 days before was not that. And so thanks for the efforts you're doing, and I think that's a wise place for us as the county, Dave, to take a look to see if there's partnership, and also Heather as well. If we don't have a plan for that building, we just end up dumping a couple $100,000 a year in it for what? We might as well have a different facility, or at least plan for a different facility in the future. So, thank you.
Commissioner Anderson.
All right. Allison, it's really been a pleasure serving as the liaison to the CDA. And you know, I'm looking back at Melody too, because I've gotten just this much of a glimpse at how much complexity that you go through. But really, it's been just a pleasure watching you and your team and the work you do for the residents of Carver County. I think one of the things that I have learned, or I'm trying to get a grasp on, is this idea of what is affordable housing. Because when people talk, when I went door to door, people would say, oh, housing needs to be more affordable. That's different than what you do. So could you clarify the market that you do and what you do that is separate from Commissioner Uderman talks about the missing middle, which is, you know, which is important as well. But let's talk about the niche that CDA does and how that's different.
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. I do intend on adding some information about this in our budget PowerPoint as well. So generally speaking, our bond-funded properties serve households at 80% of area median income. And then you go down to our tax credits at 60, 50%. It's generally the people, we do go up to 80% with land trust. What did we do for DPA, 100%? For our down payment assistance, we did go up to 100% of area median income, and that's because LAHA for home ownership allows you to go up to 110, 120%. We opted to do 100%. So generally speaking, I would say the missing middle is not the demographic that we serve. I would say that we probably hit some of that with our DPA just because our income limit was able to go higher, but our income limits generally restrict us to serve people less than what generally what people are referring to as the missing middle, just income-wise.
And as your response to Commissioner Lynch's question, we do have quite a few people on our waiting list for our current facilities as well. So the need, while you're making great progress, is not quite met yet. So
correct, and that's why we have the set aside for non-CDA entities, because as much as we'd like to do it all, number one, having 2 buildings under post-construction and 1 under pre-construction is way too much for our small staff. We also can't build fast enough to meet the needs, so.
Right. And I too am really looking forward to that board meeting in August. And I know that your staff has been flexible in working around that new space. We should kind of put out all the rumors of people who are wondering what's happening in the subway space, because so many people are like, well, what's it going to be? Is it going to be a new restaurant? Like, you're going to be disappointed. It's not a restaurant. It's CDA's office.
It's just
space.
us.
Yeah. But all good, needed for your growing team. So again, thanks for the work you do. We appreciate it.
Commissioner Lynch? You looked at me like.
No, if you're ready for a motion,
I'm ready.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to release $1 million to the Carver County Community Development Agency from the CDA Housing Project account for the Trails Edge Senior Project.
Second.
Okay, got a motion by Lynch and a second by Uderman, as previously stated. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Allison.
Finally, we get to hear from our sheriff.
We made them wait.
I was joking earlier that didn't want to have a sheriff's department. That would be the utopia world that I dream of.
I understand that you waited until I left the room to make that comment. However,
Well, and apparently you heard that I said it.
oh, Heather snitched on you, right?
Oh, boy. She's not afraid of me.
She's not afraid of anyone.
The sheriff is going to talk about the designation of retired sheriff badges to employee recognition. This is a big topic.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Do you have your Blazing Saddles quote queued up?
We don't need no stinking badges.
Exactly. So, I wonder if you might indulge me for just a minute. I want to, for the benefit of the audience and for those watching at home, I want to speak just briefly about Ms. Anderson's comments about a dispatch center, because I think you misunderstood or misspoke, but I just want people to understand as they think about this, to understand the situation accurately as they contemplate what next steps might be. There's 103 dispatch centers in Minnesota. 78 are run by counties and are independent agencies. There are very few regional county dispatch centers. Rice and Steele have a joint thing. None of the metro counties operate a regional dispatch center. They all run as individual centers. I think the confusion with the Anoka County one is they're structured differently than we are, insofar as they are not under the umbrella of the sheriff's office. They remain under the umbrella of county administration, and they have police chiefs and fire chiefs and the sheriff on the board that governs the operations of it. But the Anoka County Dispatch Center only dispatches Anoka County agencies. But to the other point, though, I really do think that because of the cost of dispatch centers, when you have an opportunity to have some collaboration and a joint endeavor, it's a good idea. And I have not been an impediment to collaborating or working with any other agencies on this, not in the past and not today. What really drives that is timing. When does Carver County need the new expensive infrastructure costs? And when do your would-be partners need that? If they're 5-7 years ahead of you and they've already invested in a 20-year endeavor, and now you're into that mix, it's harder to jump in and collaborate with them because you're at different points in the purchase cycle. That doesn't mean that you can't look at it or structure yourself to be there, but it is something that, as we're looking at our records management system, Mr. Hemsey and I have talked about making sure that our records management system that we purchase is not one of the impediments to future collaboration if, say, 5, 7, 10 years down the road, we decide we want to do something differently with neighboring counties. And so we're trying to make sure that whatever we do with those things is such that we can go in that. It gives us flexibility. So I guess that's what I wanted to get to is Anoka does have indeed the Mac Daddy dispatch centers right now. It really is nice. But that's it. So let's talk about badges. And in 2024, when the state changed its flag and seal, it was about the same time that we were contemplating evaluating our badges, and we just hadn't really looked closely at it because there's expense associated with it. The old badges were a 5-point star with the state seal in the middle, and so when we updated badges, we changed the shape and look of the badge, and then we put the new state seal on there to and cycled out the old ones. So now we have these old badges that are marked for disposal. And my original plan was to try to give those to the employees who last wore them as a memento of, appreciation of service, but also it's a keepsake of, because they have very little monetary value at this point, but they have a fair amount of internal value to the people who wore them. And I think I summarized that a little bit in the board action where it's, they carry a significant and institutional meaning to the individual deputies who wore them in service. And then I, like all things, I realized I can't just hand them out, which incidentally other agencies do. It's a common practice in Anoka County, for example. When you quit or retire, you just take your old badges with you. They don't reissue them. That's not what we have historically done. If the badge is in good repair, we will bring it back and reissue it to a new employee. If they're all tarnished and beat up, we buy them new badges and we just stockpile these tarnished and beat up badges. But before I felt comfortable distributing them to the previous employees, I thought I should probably check with Mr. Metz and his team. And they said, no, you can't do that for these valid reasons, including state laws and policies. And so then we went about trying to find a way where we could be compliant with the law and the spirit of the county's policies. And that's where we landed today. I think that the law allows the county to use taxpayer resources to serve the public purpose of recognizing employees and demonstrating that we value them and their contributions to the organization. And so I'm proposing that the board make a one-time policy exception. Your policy says that if you have stuff that is to be disposed, it can be sold, which these can't be sold because we can't sell them on the open market because of impersonating cops and all of those sorts of things. So that's out. And so that means we can melt them down, throw them in the garbage, whatever we do with them. The policy, of course, prohibits county employees from rummaging through the garbage and collecting these things to keep them. They have to be disposed of and gone. And so I'm asking the board to make an exception to this policy and instead allocate these badges to its employee recognition program, which we would then issue them back to the deputy who last wore that badge as an indicator of that we value them and the good work that we've done. Any badges that are left over after that, because they are retired, no longer suitable for service, will in fact be disposed through the normal channels of asset disposal. So that was a long way to get there, but if you have any questions, I would be happy to try to field them now.
Mr. Chair, if I may, Sheriff, you had mentioned it's just we're making a one-time policy exception. So if a deputy retires 5 years from now, can we give them their badge as they go out the door as a employee recognition? Is that what the verbiage is going to say?
That was not my intention here, although I think that might be a conversation to be had at another time. Our normal practice is if you leave after 5 years and you want to retain your badge, we basically say, okay, pay us for the replacement cost and you can keep the old one. And so they keep their old badge with all its scratches and all that stuff on it, and then they pay us whatever the fee is for the replacements that we purchase. And we've been doing it that way for as long as I can remember. Other agencies have the badges as initial issue. And so you And under our current collective bargaining agreements, if you work here for more than 2 years, you don't have to return your initial issue. If you've been here for less than 2 years and you resign or are discharged, then you have to return your initial issue of uniforms and equipment, which we then use for volunteers, other employees who it might work out for and whatnot. And so I think that might be a pathway if the board wants to do this as a going forward where they could retain their badges that wouldn't cause me any heartburn. I would look to try to structure it such that there was a certain amount of time frame that had to have been met. You know, for example, we issue plaques to employees upon 10 years of service when they depart. So if you've been here 10 years or longer, when you leave, you get a plaque. If you leave in your 8th year, there's no, we don't recognize them in a formal pomp and circumstance sort of event.
Yeah, we can discuss it later and have further discussion, so thank you for the response.
I think it's great you took this on. I think when the state changes their logo, they don't always think about the implications, and this isn't the only agency probably grappling with this, but you took it on, and my understanding is maybe it could have happened at the state level, so everybody could have had the same right to do so. So thanks for championing that on behalf of the staff. I did a little bit of research. It's felony to impersonate an officer, so you can't use that a badge, so that's on them. And you can't resell it. So those are my 2 big questions. But thanks for championing. I think I'm in favor of doing it as you're requesting, and also what Commissioner Fahey's suggesting that in the future if somebody wants to keep it. But it sounds like you're all locked up on that, so you're good to go. So thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
I'll make a motion then, Mr. Chair, to approve the distribution of the retired sheriff badges through the employee recognition program.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion by Commissioner Fahey and a second by Commissioner Uterman on this matter. Any further discussion?
Only my question for Mr. Metz, this has your blessing?
It does, Mr. Chairman and board members. We researched it, and it would have been easier if the legislature would have just encompassed everyone. They didn't. And so I feel comfortable with this. I reached out to my colleagues as well, just to see what they're doing. And it was pretty consistent that they're allowing them to keep their badges, usually in the retirement phase of that, as Commissioner Fahey indicated, and that'd be a good idea to look at. But I'm comfortable with going forward with this.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Good to see you in our final 6 months with you.
Yep. Don't be a stranger. Come anytime.
During your budget hearing coming up here in a month or so. Thanks for squealing on me, Heather. Appreciate that. And let that go. All right. We are at the end, so we're going to listen to the county administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think Heather's been emboldened here. Sorry, emboldened. Ratting on the chair, boy. I wouldn't do that. But speaking of the chair, so we met this morning, Tom and I, with our financial auditing firm, from the rep from Clifton Larson Allen. And you've already seen this good news, but a clean, unmodified opinion. Only an accountant could love that kind of lingo, which is good, really good. And I just want to mention that in part, if you look at the environment we're in, every rock you overturn has fraud under it, seems like, right? And this doesn't happen by accident, where we ended up with our audit, having a clean audit. So thanks to the board on down, especially division directors, Dave's team. It's really eye-opening when you better understand what goes on behind the scenes. And Tom and I heard a little bit about that with the finance staff and how hard they work on making sure that there's checks and balances and things are being watched carefully. So thanks. That's a very big deal for our organization, especially in today's environment. But I would say we do struggle with most of what we seem to struggle with, and we get called out for, is something to do with related to the state of Minnesota and their systems or software. You've heard many of these stories. So, but we'll continue to do that good work, but I did want to mention that. that represents another clean audit for us. And then next week, there's no meeting. There are a few things going on with highway projects, as you can see on your schedule. I will be, by the way, in Voyageurs National Park, my annual trip. And worst kept secret is I do have cell service, unfortunately, maybe. But reach out if needed. But I'll be there. Nick will be in charge as usual. And there is a township meeting, and Nick's going to be handling that one. We put a few things together for the township board to consider, and we'll get you some talking points for those of you that will be attending. Is that Wednesday or Tuesday? Wednesday, looks like. And then the following week, we'll add this to I think it's on your one of your calendars. I think you got calendar notices. So we have the board meeting at 9, which looks like at this point it'll be short, which is good because we have budget hearings immediately following that. So you'll have at least 2, maybe 3 hours of budget hearings immediately following. That's a change again from past practice. That's the full board. So we'll welcome a lot of additional input and an opportunity to learn from the division directors and their teams as they come through with their budgetary requests. So that's what I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, I too do want to add, thank you, Dave Frischman, for that in the audit committee this morning. But I want to shout out to Mary Kay Wall, of course, and my one time a year to really see Brandon Zabel, part of the staff, who's on top of stuff, mostly kind of dry stuff, unsexy county stuff, but what a great team, and just want to shout out. So, all right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Closed session.
We are going into a closed session following this.
I will second that with that acknowledgement, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, you can't adjourn yet.
Oh,
we
that's
can't.
right. We can only go into closed session. So I'll move to go into closed session.
I think Lynch is asleep at the wheel here.
Oh, right.
Somehow
It's
he-
rare. It's rare though.
You do it perfect every time. People come to expect it, so.
And Mr. Chair, it would be helpful to identify them.
Yeah, so the closed session is for real property acquisition for the Highway 40 project Silver Bevins Creek area. And I have a motion to that by Anderson and a second.
I think, Mr. Metz, do you want the PIDs or do you want the section where we're going into?
Yeah, if you could we'll reference the agenda for the PIDs, but if you could cite the statute, that'd be great.
Motion to enter into closed session to discuss confidential appraisal data and consider counter offers for the purchase of real property for the Highway 40 project, Silver Bevins Creek area pursuant to Minnesota statute section 13D.05, subsection 3C.
Nice recovery. So you stole Anderson's motion. You
I
made the
know.
motion, and I think Anderson has seconded that
I will second that.
very sturdy motion.
Whew.
Okay, any discussion on that before we go into closed session? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes.
Can we take a break?
We're taking a break.
All right.